Hey everyone, just wanted to stop by real quick for this podcast starts and say you should like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow me on all my social medias at John D. Klauser, literally the same name as the name that you subscribe to on this YouTube channel. So enjoy this clip, and I'll see you guys on the other side.
Welcome to The John Show with your host, John Doogie Klauser.
All right. I literally hit every coffee table on the way up to getting this podcast running. Oh, hey, how are you guys doing? What's going on? We are here on a new episode of the Juan Solo Show with your host, me, Juan D. Klauser. And this is episode 109. Holy crap. Can you believe that? Can you believe that we have been here? Oh, I don't know. Some of y'all might have been here for all 109. If you're brand new, just let you know you have 109 episodes of going back and watching a man stumble. You know what's so interesting? For me, it was several, a good period of time of growing and learning how to just speak into a microphone a little bit better, learning things, just learning lighting, doing different setups, making different I guess what you could call stages. Pretty much, yeah, this is a stage where you could call it. Doing those little things like that. And you get a watch, or if you did watch it, they're 30 minutes. And what is it? 30 minutes for what? 30 minutes for 109 episodes? This would be episode 109. So, you get to see that in all that time. But for me, it was it took so much longer. But for you, it's that. So, I bet, I don't know if any people, do you guys realize that? So think about a writer. A writer writes a show, right? For Netflix. And it gets, it's going to get made, and it gets made. And, it takes, let's say, 6 months to make it. Because, it's like a mini series. So, we got, an hour long for 6 episodes. So 6 hours worth of writing. So for a writer, that could be their first big idea, right? They're okay, I have all these little small ideas. At least this is how I work at it. This is how my brain works, is that you should always be coming up with ideas. I write down things every day. There's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't write down something that could go into a story. It is an idea for a story. It's just going to be something for for a podcast or for a film. It's going to be something. You're going to use it for something, because as a filmmaker, you're a storyteller. As a podcaster, you're somewhat a storyteller as well. So it's helpful. You just do it. You just do that. And so you spend all this time and this effort doing this day in, day out. You wake up, you go and you write at a certain time every day. You write some people write an hour, some people write 3 hours. I think you can get it in and out for especially what I do. Since I do all these little ideas here, there, everywhere, and I write in. There's a lot of pre-writing leading up to the actual sit down and writing. So it'd be the equivalent of someone who does stand-up, who writes on stage, who comes up with jokes on stage and then is able to memorize it all and do it and do their set and make up a set, versus someone who does that but then also records it and then re-listens to it and is able to structure it. So it's something like that, I guess you could say. It's a bunch of random brainstorming ideas, and I'm able to then structure it into a story. Well, so for that, it can take, months. Sometimes you get lucky and you're able just to write a story. Sometimes there's a story called Reunion by Raymond Carver. It's amazing. It's literally 2.5 pages, and it's about a boy and his last time that he met his father, because his father was this huge alcoholic, and they're meeting at a train station in between them crossing between locations because he was in town for a little bit and he was going back to his mother because his parents were divorced, and you kind of like in this brief like 3-act structure of a story, which is only 2.5 pages. He is able to tell you learn all this backstory in like 6 sentences. It's insane. Between the father and the son, you learn all the backstory you need to be able to be on this like the kid's side, and you understand like why this is going to be the last time that he's ever going to see this guy. I say guy, but it's his father. This was funny, but for you, even as a reader, you're like, this guy is such a cunt that you just want to get away from him. Every ounce of it, like you just want to get away. So, like you spend all this time. I see again, like you spend all this time. You spend all this time. Well, and you write this story, and then someone just gobbles it up in an hour. And it's insane. So for you as someone who just reads or who just watches like a story in an hour, it could have took someone years to do that. And it's funny to me. It's hilarious. But talking about that, so right before this podcast started, I'm just doing my thing. Getting this podcast, setting the lights up, figuring out what I want to do, and I really need to get lights. The ones that you push, the round ones, and you can push them and they turn on. I need to get like a one here, and I need to get one over here, and probably up on the top too, because it would just look cool. Because it's like a little it's a floodlight, and then it just doesn't look like a black abyss. But then you would actually probably see the back here, and you would realize that there's a light. There's a pole right here with a light, and there's a light up here which is slightly hidden, but it was supposed to be illuminating, but it's not. I don't think it's strong enough, so it doesn't really do much. It lights it up a bit, but it doesn't. The black tarp then that's behind everything kind of deadens it. So yeah, this is one of those things. Well, anyway, so yeah, I was setting up this podcast, and when I was doing that, I was I love the song Tutti Frutti by Little Richard. Little Richard's, if you don't know Little Richard, one of the greatest, he's a singer in the 50s, black man, androgynous, great. It was awesome. It was just like, I loved it, because especially when I was growing up, he was one of the very first like music I listened to, and I'm like, this guy is insane. Like, think about being this man and trying to sell this act at that time where like men were just men, women were just women. Like, you couldn't be gay, you couldn't be Italian, you couldn't be a Hispanic people didn't exist. Black people were the worst things in the world. It was just how life was back then. That's what they thought. And so then there's this black man who dresses and like sings in this high pitch. He wears eyeliner, acts very flamboyant, very like cross-dresser-esque, like, and everything in his hair, and like it makes you like, he's not gay. He's not like so flamboyant to the fact where you're like, oh yeah, this man's gay, but he's not like super masculine and super alpha where you're like, okay, this man has like 2 kids and a wife and all that stuff, that kind of like structure. And he just was like this in between, just this slightly in between with how he cut his hair, because his hair was slightly long but it's short. And he was like, he wore his clothes super, in the flamboyant way. But it was just insane. So anyway, I tell you this part because if you know the song Tutti Frutti, what happened was, like, when he originally wrote the song, this is all alleged, of course, because who knows, because it's such a long time ago. This could just be someone trying to sell a story to maybe make some money. But the original lyrics for Tutti Frutti were, Tutti Frutti, good booty. If it don't fit, don't force it. You can grease it. Make it easy. I think that's one that I honestly think that's like some of the best. That's the best original thing ever. But when he wrote it and he recorded it, And the people were like, nah, we ain't gonna do that shit. We can't do that, dude. We can't sell that shit. Because he was literally just writing about banging someone in the butt. Like, this is what you do, like, hey, if it don't fit in the butt, don't force it. Hey, take it easy. You can grease it, make it easy. It's just one of those things. Just chill out, just relax about it. No big deal. It's not a big deal. Like, you don't have to go crazy. But I love it. But yeah, Tutti Frutti, big, because it's like the original, like, yeah, Tutti Frutti, good booty. If it don't fit, don't force it. You can grease it, make it easy. I think that's awesome as hell. I think that's super funny. Hilarious. So I was at the gym the other day, and this guy, he was, oh god. So the sauna in my gym is so weird because there's this black guy who's like super into shrooms, and he's always talking to me about like, yeah, I just got a new batch of shrooms, and like I'll do shrooms and I'll play the guitar and then like I'll strum and like I can see waves and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, that's a lot of shrooms. You must be taking a lot of fucking shrooms to be able to feel that, and that's cool. Like, I don't care. Like, he says, I do it at my house. I don't go and I don't drive. I know I stock up on groceries. I do the whole thing. I'm like, okay. I'm like, and he's like, yeah. Then I just do it, and then then I come here and I'm just like so mellow and I'm so relaxed for the longest of time. I'm like, oh, like, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, bro. That's cool. And I get it, do your thing. Like, sometimes, like, you got to do these things to get a clear mind. For me, I can just drink 2 beers, watch a football game, and be fucking, and that clears my brain enough to be able to write something. I don't need a lot. I don't need much. Thank God. Thank God in that sense that my brain doesn't need to be revved up so much to get stimulated to the point where I'm like, I feel like I'm just normal. I'm just like, nah, I'm just kind of like here. I'm just doing my thing. And I'm like, if people want to come along and like see what I do, I'm like, the one thing I can say, I'm consistent. I'm not going to say it's always going to be good, but I'm consistent. Tutti Frutti, good booty. That's what I say. And that's probably going to be the title of this podcast because that's so fucking hilarious. I think that's one of the funniest things ever. And and that's one to grow on. But anyway, but yeah, talking about like I'm saying, like, how I was saying I'm just like doing my thing. What's so funny is that like today I was, hold on real quick. All right, so you might be like, John, what the hell did you just run away for? So I heard a little click in my earphones. I don't know if you guys heard that. If you guys have like earbuds in, you probably heard it. But the reason why I did that was because last week, so it records in like tens and like 10-minute fragments, and it didn't record the last 10 minutes. So it cut off after 20 minutes. I really want to say that I think it's my inbox. I got it used. So I got this 8-channeled inbox when I bought it. I originally bought a 2-channel one, and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to be doing podcasts with more than just Aaron, or there's going to be more than just Aaron doing a podcast because at that time we were doing the Beer and Friendship show, and we were always having guests on. We weren't just him and I on. And so because of that, like, I'm like, I should definitely get a inbox that has multiple channels. So if we have multiple people, even if like spur of the moment, like, 2 more people come on, so I can have like, the idea was I could have up to like 8 people on. Crazy to do a podcast like that, but sometimes that happens. Comedians, Aaron's a comedian. He has other comedians. They are doing stuff. They're doing specials, and that's the thing. That's the thing. You just gotta. You might want to do a podcast for that. Well, anyway, and it's anyway, not anyways. And but last week, yeah, it freezed out. But like tonight, when I plug it in, it's not connecting. So I either it's the cord, so it might be the cord. So hopefully, I just should buy a new one and just try it out and see if it works. It's that, or it's the inbox, which sadly I don't want it to be in the box. But when I plug it in, because I guess I don't know. So it's a male, but it has a female input. So I guess it's just a male. Yeah, it's a male. So when I put the male part into the female part kind of jiggles a little bit. If I were to, you put it in and I have to put it in and then like kind of push up a little. And most people will be like, well, that's what I got to do from here on out. But I don't like depending on that, because what it starts off with is like it normally just you push it in and it starts up. Then if you have to do that special thing, you start doing that. And then what happens when that gets worn out? And I don't like thinking like that especially when it comes to this, when it comes to stuff when you're filming. Like when I'm recording right now, I want to just be focused on like you. I don't want to also have to now be looking over the corner, make sure that when I hear a little click or something like that in my earphones, that I have to be like, okay, I have to go over and check and make sure the little numbers are still going. So I know it's a tough life, but and it was so funny. I was thinking today when I was at my job, I bought white t-shirts. I don't know why I bought I bought white t-shirts, just probably just to have them for work. I'm like, it would just be easier if I just had like, my work pants and like white shirts, and like that's my work attire. Who gives you? Because I wear a chef jacket, so it doesn't really matter anyway. So, but I'm like, whatever. I'm like, why don't I just do that? And so I bought a bag of shirts and it said large on them, and I didn't even look at it beyond that. I just saw them because they were in the men's part of the part in Walmart, like where they sell the men's like, undershirts and V-neck shirts and white beaters. Is it wife beaters or white beaters? I don't know, but I have some trash in my pocket. I felt my sign in my pocket. What the hell's that? And it was some, whenever you leave like receipts in your pocket and you wash your pants and it just balls up into those little like, it looks like your pants took a shit. Yeah, so it was a bunch of that. It was like 4 of them. Anyway, so yeah, I bought these white shirts and I came home because I was going to wash them. I was going to just go ahead and just do all my like a bunch of white towels and those white shirts and just get it, even though you shouldn't ever wash your towels, your whites, I was going to just put it on delicate, and then I was going to wash them. Then I was going to dry them separately just because I'm like, well, it's only 6 shirts, so I can dry that. And I was going to take like maybe like 15 minutes and then dry the towel separately. Weird, probably ass backwards. Anyway, I was just trying to conserve water because I'm like, this is stupid for me to do 2 loads, but yet like I don't want these wet towels to be stinky, smelly. Either one sounds childish. And so I'm like, well, fuck. I'm like, well, but I don't want to be an asshole and use a lot of water, because even if I use like extra small, like on the setting, it's still using more water than I need. Like I literally could have just washed both things together, but like you're not supposed to wash towels and wash t-shirts together. And this was the conundrum that was going on in my head at the time. And then I opened the bag that had the shirts in it, and I pull them out, and they're all little fucking toddler shirts. So they're large toddler shirts. So I'm like, well, that solves everything. And then I just put the towels in the dryer, and I just dried them, and I just left them in there. So I'm like, they're going to dry and they're going to smell. But they're going to smell in the dryer. And now my dryer's going to, I'm like, I don't know. So that's where I was. That's where I am now. It's literally a thought in my head. But anyway, so I laugh at, like, I love how there's a third world going on. Like we're on the brinks of one. We're on the brinks. And like, Biden is telling people, hey, people from Ukraine, you can flee to America now. And then I'm over here like thinking, I'm like, well, I just don't want to, oh God, I'm such an asshole if I waste water. It's like, I'm buying toddler shirts. Like, damn it, I bought the wrong shirt, because someone must have grabbed toddler shirts, and they're like, well, I don't really want these now. And then they put the toddler shirt right in front of the large shirt. Or I'm just a moron, and here we are. So, yeah, fun times. But yes, it's just funny because I laughed to myself today at my job, because I'm like, these are the conundrums of my life. Because I'm like, oh, I'm like, I really should after work go and get a new thing because I clearly need white T-shirts. And I'm like, I'll just go to Target because I'll just pay more, get less, but there'll be better quality. So I'm like, fuck it. I'll just only get like 2 instead of 6, most likely. Because I'm like, you know what? Because I know they have like a certain brand that has a nice quality thing. Again, a thought in my head that I'm like thinking out loud. And I'm like, this is what I'll do. I'll do this instead. This is what we'll do. And then I'm like, well, then I'll just do the podcast. But I had the podcast. And it's like, oh, yeah. But like, this is like the dumbest shit to be thinking about when there's a fucking world war just this close of happening. So, fun stuff. Fun stuff. But but anyway, I don't think I ever finished the sauna shit, the talk about the sauna. I literally just thought of that moment right then and there. I'm like, oh God, I have to write a description about this podcast. And I'm like, I have not a fucking clue what I've been talking about because I've been all over the goddamn place. So it's going to be a funny way of describing this podcast. So, but you know what's funny? Like, write something. Those are so much fun. Like when I get to sit here, I sit here and I'm like, because when I think of it, it's thinking of the 2 rhymes at the beginning, the grab your partner by the hand, and now it's like throw some like I don't know and like pee your name in the sand or something like that. Like you just rhyme 2 things together. That's the funnest part of the whole thing about writing the description is that it's like this is some good times. This is some fun shit. But yeah, what else do I have to talk about? Oh yeah, the sauna thing. I never finished it, and I was about to. Come on, guys. I'm doing this by myself. I don't have anyone else to bounce off of. Like, do you do a 30-minute podcast? Do you do one every week? It's so funny. Like last week, didn't really want to do it. This week, I'm like, fucking, let's just do it, and I'm gonna get it done. I'm like, I'm gonna probably get done before 1:00 in the morning. So, hey, amen, brother. And then I gotta fold some clothes. That's crazy. Anyway, so the sauna thing. So this guy, I'm in the sauna. So I told you like there's one guy who does a bunch of mushrooms all the time. And he always talks to me about it. And like every time I see him in the sauna, I'm like, fuck. And like I like sitting in there because like it's 200 degrees. I sit in there for roughly like 26, 27 minutes. And it's rough. Close to that 20, I would say the 24 to the 26 minute point is pretty rough for me. Humble brag sitting in the thing. But like I tell you what, sit in the sauna. I recommend it. It's good shit for your body. Oh, as someone's trying to scratch their back and like you can clearly tell they're in pain doing it. Anyway, so I sit in the sauna and like this, he always then wants to talk to me about doing mushrooms and like how he's like, John, if you ever want to, just let me know. I can get you some. And I'm like, that's cool, buddy. That's cool. Thank you. Thanks for the offer. But no, thank you. And then he's like, you should also like think about like going in like crypto and all that stuff. I'm like, that's cool, buddy. And then like this other guy like comes into the sauna and him and I starts talking to the other guy, the guy who talks about the mushrooms, and they start talking about like currency, like crypto and all this stuff, like doing stocks and bonds. Cause the guy does, I don't know, Roth ERAs and shit like that. I don't know. I'm not really trying to listen. I'm just like, all right, well, thank God, like these 2 guys can talk now, and I can just sit here by myself and not be bothered at all. That's the big thing. I just I just rather not talk to anyone. I'd rather not talk to people. Sometimes, most of the time, just because like I'm like, oh, dude, like I'm on a schedule, trying to get some shit done. Maybe, if we were, if the Chiefs game was on or something like that, or the Rams game was on or something, we could talk. Then I'm fucking weird to talk to out in public. I'm a weird fucking person. I'm weird as shit. I'm weird as fuck. And I'm honest about that though. I tell people all the time, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm probably gonna be the weirdest person you meet. It's just who I am. It's what I do. It's like, dude, I do film shit. I'm on my head all the time. I live in all this little make believe world up in here, and then I try to come down here. I'm just like, did you know that it used to be Tutti Frutti, good booty? That probably blew someone's ear out. Someone's ears out. But yeah. So this guy, the guy who did the mushrooms, he left the sauna, right? I'm slowly getting to the story over. If you can't tell, I have like 4 minutes left. And so I'm like trying to stall a little bit. And he like started talking. He's like, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, what you guys are, you guys' conversation. I'm like, oh no, dude, it's cool. Like, you're fine. Like, no big deal to me. Like, it doesn't bother me one bit. And he's like, I don't know I don't know. Do you, I don't know if you know much what we were talking about. I'm like, oh, bonds and like stocks and stuff like that. He's like, yeah. He's like, 5G, man. And I'm like, oh God, here it comes. Here it all comes. And I'm like, I don't know why, but I get it. Look at me. I look like somebody who believes like the earth's flat. I get that. I have just grown to accept that I am somebody that's the kind of person. Like, if I were to say somehow on this podcast and I said like, yeah, I think the earth's flat. I don't think we went to the moon. I think there's like lizard people that really run the government. I think there's like one group of 6 people. Like, you'd be like, yeah, this all sounds like things like you, John. Yeah, you look like a guy who spends a lot of time watching those like videos, and you're like, yeah, I get that. John, I feel like John, you'd probably one step from being Antifa. Like, if I saw you as being one of those pictures of being Antifa, like, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, look at him. Like, yeah, he kind of looks like it. But I don't know why, but then he's like, the 5G, like a lot of people don't know, like it messes with your blood and it thickens your blood. And I'm like, what the fuck are you fucking talking about? I'm saying it's like, it's probably radiation. There's some radiation. I'm not going to lie, but I'm like, good God, like you have to be sitting next to the fucking, like the thermostat, the big fucking, the bowl of where it's cooking. I would assume, I'm like, granted, but I'm sitting there thinking, like, don't you do stocks? Like, how in the fuck do you know about this? And you're like, and I'm like, dude, I doubt you know very much about these fucking stocks and shit. It's just because it's always like, like the person who I look up to, or I read his book and stuff like that. It's like, you're reading some book and shit. Like, this is a pyramid scheme. Sounds like a giant pyramid scheme, which is fine. But like, when I start hearing someone tell me about pyramid schemes, it's just like there's this weird, I get this taste of like pennies in my mouth. And I'm just like, okay. And they're like, this book that I read, and this guy who lives over in London, and I'm like, I start thinking, I'm like, this guy over in London probably lives in a mansion, not a mansion, but in a castle, and he probably wears a suit all the time. And I'm just like, what in the fuck, dude? Why are you telling me this weird shit right now? And it's like, 5G, it thickens your blood, and and you gotta understand. I'm like, yeah, you gotta understand. He's like, and then what was the other thing? He was telling me about how there's chips, and like they're trying to chip people, and they're trying to follow us. And I'm like, well, yeah, no shit, dude. Like, I'm like, dude, are you not following anything anymore? Do you not understand that like I talk about some dumb shit on this podcast, and my phone fucking hears it, and then it like shows me advertisements for that dumb thing, but it's just something I talked about. But yeah, I have like 40 seconds left on this podcast, so I should probably say like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much if you've gotten this far. I'm so sorry. I went on a fucking hard rant on this episode. Yeah. And 2, I kind of have to scream too, because just to make sure that the backup microphone catches me. But anyway, I will talk to you guys on the next episode because I have about 10 seconds left. All right. Spay and neuter your cats, but that's so much fucking cliche. This ain't I need to think of a better thing. Think of something. Don't be fucking cliche, you dickhead, John. All right, bye.